Happy Monday, you guys. We are back with another session, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Meghan Barrett. She is a veterinarian based out of Hawaii. Tough luck for her. And she's actually a Hawaiian native and does holistic mixed modalities. But one of the coolest things, I follow her, I stalk her on Instagram, is her sound therapy. And she has these Instagram reels of her playing harps with horses and dressed like a goddess. And so it is so much fun to watch her stuff. And I jumped on and said, please be a guest. And so today we do have her, and she does everything from bowls, singing bowls, uh, tuning forks, harps, flutes, things like that, plus a regular holistic practice. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Meghan.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. And you work on all sorts of animals, apparently.
Yes, I'm very lucky to have a broad practice of animals ranging from dogs and cats, horses, some sheep, goats, cows, and some zoo animals, and then some marine animals as well.
Now, do you play the harp for your cattle?
I've played some flute for the cows, but I haven't had the harp with me at that ranch.
At the cattle ranch? It would
Yeah.
be funny. I have seen some like TikTok videos where people are playing music and the cows like follow
Yeah, the
everywhere.
cows are really receptive to it. It's pretty cool.
It is cool. So what do you see from sound therapy? You've been a professional musician too, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was actually what I thought I was going to be when I grew up.
What
Was that?
happened? Well, okay, so many questions. How did you go from a dream and a goal to be a musician to a holistic veterinarian?
Well, my parents are both musicians. They play in the Honolulu Symphony. And so that was what I grew up around, was classical music and that whole world of things. And so I started playing violin when I was 3 years old. And then I started playing the flute when I was about 8. So, music was kind of like my big thing as a kid. And then in high school, I started playing bass guitar in a jazz band for school. And then I was like, I'm going to be a jazz musician. Like, this will be awesome. And, just like life unfolds. And I ended up needing to stay in Hawaii for college for a couple of years. And so one of the first classes I took was zoology. And it was such a fantastic course with such a great instructor that, I decided to switch gears, because throughout all that too, I had many pets and many animals growing up. That was my other big passion. And, one by one, I convinced and connived my parents so we would get, a bird, and then we'd get a rat. And it was just like this accumulation of creatures until we had a whole menagerie. And then in high school, it culminated with my horse that they got for me to help me with my dark depression phase that I went through at one point. And yeah, I mean, my horse saved my life. I still have him. He's turning 29 next week. So, it's been an amazing journey. And I really never could have foreseen the way that things played out, where it's like very full circle that I'm able to integrate the music with the animals, because I never really connected those dots growing up. It was just kind of like two realms that I was living in parallel. But yeah, I mean, this is such a long story, but as I went through vet school, I kind of disconnected in some ways from parts of myself, like the musical parts. But I was also doing a lot of dance, and I was teaching fitness, and I experienced some injuries with my neck and shoulder. And so in my healing journey for myself, I started working with some acupuncturists and other types of natural healers, because the Western treatment that was offered to me was surgery or pain medication. And then the surgeon said, you can't have surgery. It's not bad enough for surgery. So I was basically just left with not many options. And so at one point I was like working with a shamanic practitioner to try to energetically heal my neck. And it was just like a whole new world opened up to me at that point. And anyway, so yeah, many things have happened, but since I finished vet school and came back to Hawaii and have been living my life here, doing some, professional music stuff on the side with like playing with different groups. And um, I do some DJing and music producing and stuff. At one point, it's actually when my grandmother passed away and she was a musician and I started getting the impulse to play the harp. And so I started learning and it was just like, I don't even know. I think her soul wanted me to play or something. And so that's pretty much been my main instrument for the past several years. And I started noticing that my pets would respond really well when I would play it. Like the cats would come and sit and just fall asleep at my feet. And it started just inspiring me to consider the applications. And I was also learning about, the tuning forks and the bowls. And so, yeah, it's just like been a crazy journey, but I feel like where I am now with it is exactly where I was supposed to be because it just feels like the two sides of myself that always wanted to come forth are now together.
That's so beautiful. And I love the fact that you were like, you've done all performing arts, it sounds like. And then the animals brought you back to a different aspect. And the whole experience was just this renewal of a new existence for you.
Yeah, very much. I mean, as a kid, like I was, had a lot of compassion for animals. And in Hawaii, we have fireworks. Like it's a big deal here. And I wrote a letter to the newspaper when I was like 11 years old, demanding that fireworks be outlawed because of how disruptive they are to animals. And, it's like they're illegal now, but people still do it. But that's one of the biggest issues that I see is animals experiencing noise phobia and those types of things. So um, I think I always understood how sensitive they are. And as a musician, kind of having a sensitive auditory system, had some extra compassion for them. So that's
So
one of the big things that I tell people is, like uh, it's not just giving nice music to animals, it's also like dealing with the bad noises that they have to interact with living with us humans.
Dr. Megan, I'm so amazed because I feel like it came full circle for you that you were like so aware how sensitive they were and how disruptive some sound is. And now you're using sound for healing. What kind of healing things have you seen from music therapy? Have you seen like some obvious changes in animal?
Yeah, I think, one of the big differences that I've noticed is when I was still working at a conventional hospital doing my treatments, acupuncture and stuff, but within a actual hospital space instead of where I work out of now, the pets really couldn't relax and settle their nervous system down because a big thing was like the noise pollution within the hospital of doors banging and, machines whirring and other dogs barking and just the constant background noise that, I think to them is probably really loud because of how sensitive their hearing is. To where now I work in a pretty insulated, soundproofed space. And, when they walk in, there's calming music playing already. And most pets are sleeping through their treatments for the majority of the time.
That's
So
pretty
it's
amazing.
just a remarkable difference in the patient experience that I have just from that alone.
Do you actually sing to them?
I sing to my own pets.
I think
I
pets
haven't
love
sung in
singing.
front of other people, but yeah, it's really fun. It's a very personal thing you can share with them.
When I was a kid, I would ride kind of like these Navajo reservation horses, and they were kind of sassy. And I would sing to them when I rode them, and it always calmed them down. It always did. And so, yes, I early as young as probably 10 years old, I was singing to nervous horses. Um,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah,
surprised
that's an
because
easy
my
way, you know, The
Yeah.
tone of your voice makes a huge difference.
And I don't have the best singing voice, so I didn't know how it would go, but they are my best audience. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they
do
love
you
it.
want to show us what is a tuning fork? Like, I don't know anything about tuning fork therapy.
Yeah, so tuning forks are one of the modalities you might use in a sound therapy session. And, it's a little different than music therapy, where there's actual like a melody and a harmony and rhythm or whatever. The tuning forks are more like purely vibrational. And so the way that they're crafted, that when they are struck and made to vibrate, then they will put out a certain sound frequency. So for example, this is a 128 hertz tuning fork. It's weighted, so it has these weights at the end. And this is different than this one, which doesn't have weights. And this is
Oh,
at a different frequency. So they're intended to be used in different ways. And the way that I use them, the one with the weights has the weights allow the fork to vibrate a more strong, like you can actually feel the vibration. So these will often be used for on-body treatments. So you might apply it to an acupuncture point to
that's
activate
what I
that
was
point.
just going to ask you. So, you literally,
Yes.
instead of acupressure with your finger, it actually works vibrationally. How
Yeah. Yes. And it's really amazing because it can also, through the sound waves, it's going to be affecting the water in the tissues and the fascia, the lymphatic system. And so it's very, I think it's somewhere in between like, an acupressure and an acupuncture would be the tuning fork. And so I often will use it for pets who can't tolerate needles, or if they need something a little stronger at home than acupressure, then a pet owner can learn to use the tuning forks and use that on the points and have a little bit of maybe a stronger effect than just using a digital pressure alone.
So do you want to show us, give us a little example? Are we gonna like
Yeah.
respond to it? Like, will our hearts flutter or anything like that?
I mean, it depends on the point that you're doing. And I think, I don't know that you could feel it through our Zoom call, but one of the easy points, like the first point I ever acupuncture on myself was large intestine 4, which is right here. So if you are going to do that, then you would activate the fork by striking it. You often will use like a rubber disc or something that you can hit it on so that you don't have to hit your hand all the time. But this works too, to just get it vibrating. And then you can place it onto the point. And I feel it in my hand that the fork is on. I can feel it through my entire hand,
That's
like very,
amazing.
very clearly. There's nothing really woo about this, in my opinion. And so it's really cool. I think it can be very calming and it feels nice. Like doing one on your head is actually a really nice calming point on GB20. And it has this kind of grounding effect that you feel when you do it. So you can
So
do that on any point and it works.
you mentioned water, so it works resonating with water. Water's kind of a cool conduit, isn't it?
Yeah. And sound waves travel very well through water too.
So do you activate it with water, not just within the body, or do you implement using like water therapy with sound therapy?
I feel like you could, but you might need like a pool or something, that's large enough to have body parts in, if not the whole patient.
So is
So
that why
that's a really
people,
cool concept.
yeah, is that why people sing in the shower?
Maybe.
They're actually treating themselves therapeutically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually do a lot of prayer in the shower because I believe the water is a conduit to the prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. I mean, how lucky are we to have like a heated waterfall in our house?
exactly. Yeah, let's thank the person who decided to create hot water heaters.
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
other type of tuning fork that you might see are these, the unweighted ones. And these are more used for in the field, so they're not on the body. So you might use it either to clear a space after a session, or you can use it around the body. Some people who use these, especially on people, you might activate the fork and move it through the field and see where the sound might suddenly drop off. That could mean that there's an energy blockage. I don't personally use these as much with the patients because they are very high pitched. And so, I don't like to subject their sensitive ears always to the high pitched sounds, but I will use it after a session to clear the space so that we're not bringing anything from the last patient into the next.
that's really amazing. Is there hurts that you hurt people with or animals with, and hurts that you heal animals with?
There are some frequencies that are more known to be healing. Like one of the well-known ones is 432 hertz. So my flute that I use for sound healing is tuned to that frequency. And so, there's many, and you can get like sets of these tuning forks that are in like a whole rainbow spectrum of, it comes with like 15 of them, and they're all tuned to different frequencies depending on the way that they're intended to be used. So you can get pretty deep with just the tuning forks alone. There's a really cool company called Accutonics that makes tuning forks, and they have a whole veterinary animal-based training and like giant textbooks and stuff. So for anyone who's interested in that, there's a big rabbit hole to go down for sure.
I love that. Now, do you teach it also, or will you teach it?
So yeah, I don't teach Accutonics specifically. That's like their brand. I do use some of their forks, but I do teach how to use tuning forks in a practical way for people who want to use it on their animals.
Non-veterinarian practitioners or
Yeah,
pet
or
owners.
any vets who want to know. I've taught some, or pet owners especially.
We had Dr. Marlene Siegel on, and she talked about healing tunes or tones.
Hmm.
And one of our members, Cheyenne, actually started playing that in her barn and noticed some difference.
That's wonderful.
It's pretty cool. And what are the singing bowls?
So singing bowls are another musical instrument that are often used for therapeutic purposes or for like a sound bath. Um, they are often tuned to different notes of the scale. And I have like a set of 7 that I use that are basically like tuned to the key of C. And so you have one in each note, and so you can play them alone or together to make kind of a ongoing like droning melody of these sound and frequencies. And they're very beautiful and nice to listen to.
And do you do that in your practice for animals?
Yeah, depending on what's going on, one way I love to use them is during acupuncture. Once the needles have been placed, and if the pet is settled enough, for me to step away to the bowls, then we might play some bowl frequencies for them. And it's cool too because the ones that I have are each note is corresponding to one of the chakra energy centers. And so, if we're doing acupuncture for heart problems, then we can play the heart chakra bowl for them. And it just feels like a nice extra layer of modalities to give them.
Now, I would think that even like your metal, your jewelry, the needles would also add to the resonance of the sound.
Yeah, it certainly could.
Are your needles copper? Do you like get into different types of needles for different resonance?
That's a really cool thought. And I haven't really gone there. I use stainless steel needles for the most part, but you could certainly experiment around with that to see if there's a difference.
Yeah, I notice money is usually in silver, gold, copper, platinum, anything of
Yeah.
value, and it creates a current. Like we call it currency, but it creates a current. And I've always been fascinated by that. I've used copper to heal like copper bracelets, things like that. I've actually used it on horses, and it's a trace mineral. So you don't want them to wear it very long, but it's been really effective for inflammation. So I was just wondering, and colloidal silver is great, and gold's just expensive.
Yeah.
But I know they have copper beads for acupuncture or acupressure.
Yeah, and gold beads too.
Yeah. So I wonder if the resonance of your sounds come with the metal would be a higher impact.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to explore that side of, blending everything together.
Well, let me know when you try it.
Yeah.
Like making like news on your sound waves.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Anything else that you use? So you actually use your instruments, you play your flute, and you do that in-house.
Yes. Yeah, I will play the bowls and sometimes the flute or the harp during our sessions.
What does a session cost?
So it depends. Generally, my sessions are kind of billed based on time. So it just depends on how long of a session we need for the modalities that we're going to do. Um, it can range anywhere from 200 up to, sometimes I'm charging 500 for like a private event gig where I have to bring a lot of equipment and be there for several hours. So it just depends. But, for pet owners, we're usually going to be combining modalities in a session. So if they're paying, $250, they're going to be getting acupuncture, laser therapy, massage, some sound therapy, and maybe some ozone, other things like that.
Yeah. And you travel with all of that.
Depending on where we're going, the car is often very full.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And because you're on an island, it's got to be limited. So you can't fly with all that stuff, or do you?
I have flown with the harp and the flutes. Um, I have not traveled with the sound bowls yet. Usually, if I'm going somewhere where they want that, then I'll have them invest in their own set so that we can just use the ones that they have, and then they can continue to use it not themselves.
That's a great idea. I love that. And then that way you're not packing everything. Do you have an assistant that helps you?
I don't. I pretty much do things on my own with the pet owners helping out where it's needed. But um, yeah, I'm pretty independent when it comes to those things.
Have you noticed any of your sounds, tones causing aggravation in animals?
Well, the ones that I use therapeutically, I've selected for that, but there's tons of sounds that are aggravating for pets. So any kind of sudden noises, high frequency sudden noises, doors slamming, or it's just there's a lot more things that are not nice to hear than there are nice things to hear. So um, when it comes to like making music, so sometimes I will make a recording of sound therapy music for pets, and I find that there is a pretty limited range of instruments or sounds that I want to use, because some of the things that like more traditional for a sound bath for people, like the gong or a drum, might actually not be very soothing for certain animals. Like dogs don't seem, I won't say all dogs most dogs don't seem to like the gong because it kind of sounds like thunder and it has that rumbling and kind of like erratic metallic sound to it. But I have seen other dogs that sleep through a gong meditation and they don't seem bothered by it at all. So it just depends. And that's one of the fun things is you can experiment with your own animals, you know, at low volumes to see what things they what how they might respond in different ways.
That's great. My there was somebody at my house and they dropped something and my dog thought somebody was at the front door. So I could understand where like some sounds trigger memories that are just more alerting, like somebody's here.
Yeah, or even just like stuff that we like to hear, like those little chimes that kind of have that like fairy sound. As lovely as they are, I think for an animal with really acute hearing, that can be pretty jarring. So if they're like in a kind of a trance listening to some droning sound, and all of a sudden it's like this chimes, it's like they're like, what is that? So I think you have to really kind of get into their brain and be like, if I was a cat or a dog, like what would get my attention and what would put me to sleep? Because I kind of try to think of them like babies, like lullaby music is generally what seems to calm pets down the most, where it's just slow, it's repetitive, it's not going to pique your ear or your interest. It just kind of like puts you to sleep, which is for most of them, we're in a overstimulated sympathetic overdrive most of the time. We're trying to counter that. And so that's how we'll use the music more so than like hyping them up to go on a run or something. Like they're already hyped up naturally for the most part.
So do you have your own like sound album for your dogs and cats, CDs?
Well, I don't have CDs because you know how it's CDs nowadays, but I do have
I'm like,
my YouTube. I know my car will play CDs, so that's nice. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of my music on it that I've created myself, and there's one like 9 hour long video that you know would be nice for if you're going to work or the pet has to be alone for an extended period of time, just so that you know. Unfortunately, YouTube has ads,
I know, I was
so
just gonna say, well, you have to teach the dogs
yeah.
how to like skip.
I know, but I do have it on SoundCloud, which is another audio hosting service that doesn't have ads. So that is a nice alternative. But most people aren't aware of SoundCloud. So it's kind of YouTube is like the entry point to just find it and hear about it.
So what's your YouTube channel?
It's just Dr. Barrett,
Okay,
holistic veterinarian.
excellent. I'm excited about that. I can't wait to play that for Harley.
Yeah. Yeah. And there'll be more coming out. It's just like finding the time to sit down and do it. But it's really fun. And I work with another musician who's a good friend and a dog owner. And so we work together on those music projects and it's great fun.
I love it. So horses versus dogs, do they appeal to different sounds and tunes?
I have found that to be true. Horses are really cool with how they respond to sounds and music. They're pretty different than cats and dogs. I think because the way that, especially dogs, the frequency that they make their vocalizations in, almost like you know those whining and yeah, the whining
The
frequencies that
name,
they can put out.
yeah.
Yeah, horses aren't always as like something that could to a dog sound like another dog. A horse doesn't seem to be as like, what was that? Like, who is that? So like the flute, I think for dogs can be a little bit intense. And often, you know, if I'm playing for them indoors in my office, it can be kind of loud. But if you're playing for a horse out in a pasture, they seem to just want to go straight to sleep. And I think that being that the type of creatures they are, where they live in a herd and you know they're constantly napping and kind of doing these like sleep wake rhythms, it seems like they want to be put to sleep. and take a quick nap any chance that they get where they feel safe. And so yeah, it's really fun playing for a herd of horses because they're all gather around and like fall asleep together. And
That's
it's just
beautiful.
beautiful to see.
It is. That is really beautiful. Someday I imagine you doing a concert for cats and dogs, and
Yeah,
like,
I've dreamed about that too, but then I'm like, what if they all just start running around and like want to play with each other? So cats and dogs are silly in that way where, we want them to behave, but they often have other ideas.
yeah, but in Hawaii, I mean, if you're gonna live anywhere, Hawaii is probably the very best place to have an outdoor amphitheater for
Yeah,
cats and
there,
dogs or
there's
dogs.
a really cool park right by Diamond Head, and that's where I'm planning to do a little pet concert someday.
Yay, that's awesome. Well, hopefully you live stream that to your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so
I'll let
cool.
you know when I do.
Please do. Please let us know. Um, I've I've seen some new research lately about sound waves and cancer, and that it actually seems to kill cancer cells. Are you into that? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, but I don't know about that particular research, so I'd be very interested to check that out.
Yeah, I'll find it and send it your way. I'd love for you to have it because maybe you could be the one that does it in the pet space.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be very helpful. One really interesting research that I did recently see was a new study showing they would play classical music for dogs leading up to surgery and during surgery, and compared with dogs that didn't have any music played for them, the ones who had music played, they could use significantly lower amounts of anesthetic drugs and pain medication to keep them at a good place during their procedures. And
That's
I just think,
insane. That's so
I
cool.
know, I think it's so cool that even when they're asleep, the music that's being played in the operating room can have an effect on them.
So I want all my vet girlfriends to have your tunes and do this while they do
Yeah,
dentals and all
I
their
know.
surgery.
Yeah, it really drives me nuts because I also do relief work. And it's like when you come in and you're just helping out for the day or whatever, you're not going to be like, oh, we have to listen to my music right now. Like we have to put on like classical piano all day because a lot of people don't want to listen to that at work. So sometimes they'll be like trying to trim a dog's nails and there's like rock and roll playing. And I'm like, you guys, this is not conducive to the peace for the pets. But it's like as a worker, you want to listen to the music you like, and you're kind of like, rocking through your day. And like, I get it. As someone who's worked a lot and worked really hard, sometimes like that kind of music can be really motivating to help you get through the long hours. But same time, uh, it's a big thing like with the fear-free campaigns and that thing that hopefully a lot more people are becoming aware of is like these fear-free practices in pet hospitals that the type of music that's being played for the staff is, it's also affecting the pets. And so I think more vets are becoming aware of that, but it's also just kind of like a work culture thing that in the back of the hospital, people, they're kind of they do what they want. Like during surgery, a lot of times the surgeon gets to choose their favorite music to listen to during the procedure. And that might be,
AC/DC.
really, yeah, or like intense hip hop or whatever they want to do their work to. But I think it's really validating to see that there's research showing that it's having an effect on the patient, and they're really the one that we should be focusing on and trying to cater to. So,
Right. And if you can minimize
we'll
it,
get there.
and why not do that? And you use this term. I actually have never heard it. Is a fear-free environment for vet clinics. Is that like a campaign that's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So Fear Free is a program that I think was created by Dr. Marty of Dr. Like he has his own dog food company and
Goldstein.
everything. Yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Goldstein. Yeah, so I believe he created this program maybe 10, 15 years ago, around there. And it was a campaign to try to teach and educate animal professionals about how to have a more peaceful environment and environment that caters to patient care and trying to reduce the stress and fear and anxiety through, things that are in our control. A lot of things are not, but the things that we can, and there's a lot of it. So when I was in vet school, they were teaching the vet students about fear-free handling, and there's a lot of different aspects to it, but it's really wonderful because it's spreading awareness about the fact that the way we handle our pets, the way that our hospitals are set up, and there's many, many layers to it, and it all affects the patient experience. So you might be able to address certain things like having a cat-friendly waiting area so that the cats can be put up on a shelf instead of just down on the floor. And, making sure that there's like a cat-friendly zone where you can have your cat appointments separate from the dogs, so maybe they don't have to smell the dog smells, and just stuff like that. Different ways of restraining animals using towels instead of like scruffing them, and ways to avoid using muzzles or to use muzzles safely. They're really into using medication in an appropriate way for pets who are stressed so that they can be, if they need to, they can be sedated coming into the vet so that they're not going to hurt themselves or hurt a staff member. So it's really cool.
It's good for everybody.
Yes, very much. And the
Yeah.
places that I've worked at who have embraced it, it's a night and day difference for not just the pets and their owners, but also for the work culture and the people who work there. It's night and day difference. So if you don't already work or take your pets to a fear-free hospital, you might consider looking for one in your area because they are becoming more widely, it's becoming more of a widely known thing.
Well, Dr. Meghan, a lot of us are pet professionals that have our own practice, even though we're not veterinarians. And I think it's just good practice for all of us to be aware of.
Yeah, and you can get certified as any type of animal professional. They have training programs on the website. If you just look up fear-free animal handling, then they will have many types of courses and training that you can become a fear-free certified practitioner.
Very cool. Thank you for that. That was
It's
so
wonderful.
unexpected. How fun is that? You guys, do you want to ask Dr. Meghan any questions? And are we missing anything you really wanted to talk about tonight?
I can imagine that I can imagine that the pet owners must benefit highly from this as well. You must have some very happy pet owners.
Yeah, it's nice. We're all very relaxed at my office, so the people get to enjoy the relaxed atmosphere and the music and the aromatherapy, and I kind of set it up to feel as much like a spa as I could so that I'm relaxed, the pet owner's relaxed, the pets are relaxed, and we all just leave feeling really good because
Very cool.
that's a different experience than you tend to have working in a veterinary hospital.
Right, absolutely. Also, have you ever heard of the Wave Watch?
No, what is that?
It's a sound watch that I got to help with my pain and inflammation. And it has 1,000 different things you can treat with it, like different organisms like fungi and bacteria. You can treat pain all different kinds of pain.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's really very cool. I've used it for about um, 6 months now, and I feel like it really helps. And I'm actually thinking of using it on my dog. You
Well,
know,
I know. Could you just like, is it the right size? You could attach it to their collar or harness or
yeah, that's what I
something.
was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
That
I mean,
is
it
super
doesn't
cool.
have to, you don't have to hear it, so he doesn't have to hear it. He can just feel the frequencies will go through his body, and I could just like put it so that the frequencies against him, I guess. It's really
That's really amazing.
yeah, it's very cool. It's just I haven't used it for a lot yet, but I really feel like it's like that's what attracted to me this talk is the sound, the different things that we're using for healing are so important, and they're so diverse, and there's so many things in this world I think that we can use that I'm just really I think this is very exciting work.
Well, and I
Yeah,
think
they,
we're bombarded with white noise all
yes.
day long.
Yeah, we all get kind of numbed out on the sounds that you have to ignore. And it does have an effect on your nervous system. And they say that sound is a nutrient for your nervous system. So making sure that you're have a healthy nutrition when it comes to your sound intake, and that you're listening to good sounds intentionally instead of just coping with the unpleasant ones that we all have to be around just living in the world.
Dr. Megan, can you actually detox your nervous system with sound?
I think you can, but it depends on what your baseline, where you're coming from, of like, do you live in an urban environment where it's sound constantly, or are you living in the country? And it's like, what's your burden uh, of toxin when it comes to that? So I think to a certain extent you can. I think it's also can be a big part of just, yeah, detoxification in general, to pay attention to what our nervous system is experiencing, and the things that are what we're allowing in, and releasing that too.
Diane, do you have any questions for Dr. Barrett?
Hi, thank you for answering our questions. I was at a local health food store and they sell the tuning forks, but they had a wide variety and I'm very interested, but I don't even know where to start. So do I look for a certain, the key of C, the key of something else? Do the hertz play into that? Just, I guess as an extreme beginner, what's your advice for us?
I think as a total beginner, I would suggest looking at the Acutonics brand, because they do have ones that are made. I don't know if this is for yourself or for animals, but they do have, forks that are compatible for pets. They have books that you can read and learn. It all talks about the same ones. So I think Acutonics is probably the most widely known, and you could really trust the quality of the ones you get. I
And
think
this could go for myself as well as the
yeah,
horses. Okay,
very much.
thank you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of options. Like, I wouldn't say there's one ideal tuning fork to start with. It may be if you could get like a set of 3 or something,
Okay.
and just experiment with them. It's really, I think a lot of it is about just experimenting and seeing what you and your pets seem to respond well to.
So the one you said you have to tap, what is that one called versus the other one that doesn't have?
Yeah,
whatever
so
you are?
they're called, like, it's weighted versus unweighted. So this is the
Okay,
weighted kind,
okay.
and this is the unweighted. So these are the weights on the ends.
Uh-huh.
And then they even make these tiny little ones, and this is very high pitched. So
Okay.
yeah, use it
Why would you
sparingly.
use that?
This is more for clearing. So
Okay.
if you really want to clear the energy in a space, then this is really awesome for that. it's just kind of high pitched, so you could really startle an animal with it. I
It
think
would
if you,
literally clear the room. Everybody would
Yeah.
leave.
yeah, and you can actually hit it with a little wooden mallet.
Okay, that's
But
what I was
it's
going to ask.
even
Is
like,
how does it make a
yeah.
noise?
Like I can almost barely hear it because it's so high pitched. So it's kind of almost like a dog whistle, where when it gets into those high frequencies, I think that it can be really sensitive for dogs and cats. But this
So
one, this is an ohm fork from Acutonics, and it's 136.1 hertz. So this is a really good like all-purpose tuning fork. The ohm fork from Acutonics would be one I would suggest.
And the weighted one, is that
for if
okay.
you want to do like acupressure type
Yes.
on the body point stimulation and those types of things, then this is what I would suggest.
Okay, thank you.
Would that drain the lymphatics?
They say that it can.
It seems like it
can move the lymphatic fluid. And if you think about it, if there's an area that has stagnation, like a stiff joint, like if your elbow is stiff and you strike this and you put it there, it's going to be moving it pushes sound waves through the fluids in your tissues, and through that it can actually have a big effect on the lymphatics and the fascia, which are tissues that we're often overlooking, in conventional practice.
Well, and fascia is almost like its own network.
It is. Yeah.
That's so cool. My mind is semi blown right now thinking about all the things like the metabolic courses because I always think of metabolic, like more hypothyroid would really move the sluggishness of that around.
Yeah. And I mean, all of this stuff with the sound and everything, it is subtle, but I think it can be very powerful.
Excellent. Anything else, Charlene? Did you want to ask anything? I cannot see any.
Charlene's done. I have one more question.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, and I just saw the comments. For some reason they weren't popping up, and they just did. So, could sound deter healing? And can you kill parasites with sound?
Great questions. So I do think that sound can deter healing. For example, going back to like the noise pollution type of thing. If a sound is aggravating to you, then it does have a negative effect on the state of your nervous system, which can affect your immune system, and in turn, slow a baseline of healing that would have been maybe going faster. And I think, that's the nice thing about like using music therapy in hospitals, especially, I know they do a lot for people where they'll have musicians go around and play for someone who's like hospitalized, and the patients say it makes a huge difference for them just in their state of mind. And it can even be like a thing where they have a spiritual experience. If you're going through some kind of big health event and you have someone come in and play music for you, it could certainly have a really big impact. So I think it's hard to ask our animals these questions, but I think you can also observe their behavior and see if a particular noise that you introduce seems to help them relax or cause a little bit of aggravation.
Excellent. I think
the parasites, I don't know about that, but I would be really curious.
I know, it would be great, right?
Yeah,
it's a listing on the
$1 million idea.
It's a listing on the Wave Watch that you can get rid of tapeworm. The tapeworm. Damn, I just had it. Sorry.
Well, and I know like the Rife, one of our first guests ever was a Rife machine person. And then we've had the AO, somebody from AO Scan. So they like run a scan across you and then send you some sound tunes. and they did my dog. And every time I played his tunes for him, I would get an asthma attack. And so it kicked my butt. And I had to call the technician and go, hey, I can't do this. This is like really extreme. And it's like compromising my health. And they were just like, oh, it must be evoking like some sort of disease, like aggravating the disease. I'm like, well, I'm not going to push through this. Yeah, because that shouldn't be right.
Yeah, it has to work for everyone in the household.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have seen harpists in like breast cancer waiting rooms and things like that. And it's just beautiful. Absolutely. What a fun thing. Thank you for your
I have
time.
one last question, if that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Of course.
Do you do cranial sacral therapy, and do you add this to it, or do you know anyone that might add it to it? Was it beneficial?
So I do some craniosacral therapy through like a T-touch modality.
Yes.
Through, and you know, tail work and ear and head work with manual stimulation. And T-touch is a big one that I will do. So in that way, practically speaking or logistically, it would be hard to like play an instrument while you're doing that. But I think certainly having nice therapeutic music playing during a session like that could be very powerful.
Well, so what I was thinking is more
Yeah.
along the lines of the tuning fork. Is that what you call it? A tuning fork?
Yes.
The weighted and unweighted. Maybe hitting some of those acupressure points first.
Yeah.
And going
That's
into therapy.
Fantastic idea.
Okay, so you don't think that would be like, oh, that could negate things. You think that would be an okay to combine that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think, you know, like with anything, you'd have to experiment and it would probably vary from patient to patient. But I often will use the tuning fork as a warm up before putting in needles. And
Okay.
sometimes you can even apply the vibrating tuning fork and then put the needle in like underneath it so that it's kind of helping with that sensory activation where in some painful areas, it might be nice to have the vibration feeling as the needle's being inserted so it's not as painful for that patient. But yeah, I love, you guys have some amazing like extrapolations that you're coming up with, and it's fantastic. One other thing just came to mind too. Yeah, my own acupuncturist, she'll put my needles in, and then as I'm laying there, she'll play the sound bowls for me. And I've been on like a total inner journey with that. And that's ever happened to me just with regular acupuncture with no music. So that was actually one of the times that I was inspired to start bringing my bowls in to my practice, was after having a session with her. And I had such a powerful experience of the needles combined with the bowls. There's something about it that, whether it's like Poppy was saying, where it's like physically vibrating through the needles and it's doing like a physical activation, or if it's just like a energetic full body experience. Either way, it was really awesome. So I've had good results with that.
Very cool. That's so neat. I'm so excited. Thank you for being with us tonight. And our minds are like running too, obviously. And I love the fact that, Cheyenne, you brought up that about the cerebral spinal fluid being a conduit in a way.
Yeah.
That you're like activating the flow of that and then adding the cranial sacral. Ah, that's so cool. Tell us how it goes, Cheyenne.
I'll do that. I will try it.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have a great week. You guys, I don't know who's coming next week. I actually kind of dropped the ball on you. I've been working really, really hard on an EPM summit. So I am going to host that February 24th. I think we have 14 speakers at that. And so it will be free to all of you. Of course, it's free to everyone. But if you want, if people want to up level and be on the Zoom with the speakers, everybody else has to pay a little bit of money to get on the Zoom. But you guys, it's always free. So thank you so much. And you guys have a fabulous week. I'm going to like look into some tunes here. I'm going to go put on your YouTube channel right away. And you
Yeah.
also have a book.
Yeah, I have a book about pet nutrition and the importance of feeding of fresh human grade diet, whatever that might be, however that might work for you and your pets and your family. But I think one of the big important things is just trying to get away from highly processed food for all of us.
Amen. Absolutely. So your website, your contact info, and do you do online consults?
Yes.
Yes to everything.
Yes to everything. Just reach out if you ever want to get in touch.
And it's Muse Veterinary or Muse Vet?
Yeah, so the practice is called Muse Holistic Veterinary Care. And then my own like personal doctor Instagram and stuff is Dr. Barrett Vet.
Okay, great. Thank you. You guys have a fabulous week. What a great way to start your week.
Happy Monday. Thanks for
Likewise.
having me.
Thank you for being here. Bye.